Sara and Isha, we are very excited to have you guys present on the climate crisis presentation. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so I'm Sara,
I'm Isha.
and during this project, we had to focus on how climate change affected Japan. So, our research question is: to what extent does climate change have on lifestyle factors such as society, economy, and environment in Japan? Climate change has gone from a side concern to a primary one of growing importance by the Japanese government, as market income, geographical size, and risk of elderly move into a position of great threat. Changing temperatures risk everyday life, from labor workers to scientists, but Japan's focus on mitigating and adapting these may be the turning point to deter from a sinking city.
Japan is a string of islands located on the eastern edge of Asia. Its climate varies seasonally with extreme summers and cold winters, with different and yet equally substantial impacts of climate change. It is mostly temperate but has subtropical regions like Hokkaido.
Japan is relevant in today's society as it's a technologically advanced hotspot and the world's third largest economy, making it a point of interest if our planet's future is set to deteriorate. From AI tech to super fast bullet trains, its innovation challenges the rest of the world and therefore should stay prioritized to lead us as a globe to a better future, as well as aiding low income countries like Kenya in the context of climate change.
As climate change effects increase in Japan, the burning of fossil fuels, forestry, and consumption of electricity become more apparent. From vehicle tech to robotics, Japan's constant advances call for a lot of energy. Carbon dioxide is the largest contributor of greenhouse gases, over 90% of total emissions from power companies, drilling, and nuclear plants, shown in Figure 3 and 4.
Figure 2 shows the overall greenhouse gas emissions by sector. Electricity and heat are the main contributors from 1990 to 2016. Compared to Hong Kong, which is a high-income country around 3,000 kilometers from Japan, Japan has emitted around 66 billion tons of CO2 since 1868, compared to 1.6 billion tons from Hong Kong, according to our relevant data shown in Figure 1.
Impacts on lifestyle. In terms of impacting the environment, temperature spikes, induced disasters, and droughts will increase, harming natural and man-made environments. Now, there's a temperature increase of 1.15 degrees Celsius per 100 years, compared to the global average of 0.68 degrees Celsius. According to the Japan Weather Association, Figure 1, severely hot days will increase in Okinawa and Amami as cold days decline in northern Japan, as well as excessive precipitation.
Now, in regions with 1 millimeter or less of rainfall, daily droughts will arise, decreasing river flow. However, regions above 100 millimeters, deep-seated landslides may see an increase, shown in Figure 3, as well as rising sea levels, damaging environments like forests and rice fields. For example, beech forests may decline 43% in the next 30 years, shown in Figure 2. A positive impact, however, is due to the enhanced CO2 concentrations. Fertilization rises as photosynthetic activity increases, useful for soybeans and other food products. In terms of the society, as climate change starts to infiltrate properties and become more significant in daily life, the health and public image of Japan shifts. Japan's demographic and life expectancy of 84 years means elderly are a pressure point of high risk from heat stress and illnesses from carriers including malaria and meningitis and polluted air and water. Additionally, increased extreme storms like typhoons could be the downfall for Japan's tourism and living comfort. An example is the 2019 Typhoon Hagibis. The number of tourists here dropped to less than 10% than the norm, leaving a society closely bound to tourism a ghost town.
All risks aside, climate change brings people together as protests and clubs form on common ground. 75% of 19 to 29-year-olds in Japan expressed interest in climate change, which is an impressive figure by global standards. Especially after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, Japan has become almost obsessive whilst tackling energy affairs. And as for the economical impacts, as harsh weather conditions of climate change escalate, a stress for money and sustaining income spirals. As well as floods, harsh winds lose $18 billion, which could increase by 70% to $34 billion. Larger, economically rich companies don't want to pitch into climate change, instead advancing their own infrastructure, but some construct buildings for climate-useful technology like solar panels, emitting more GHGs than if there was no storage at all, creating a positive feedback loop.
Moreover, Typhoon Hagibis, mentioned before, was 2019's costliest event, with over $10 billion lost, according to Aeon's catastrophe report. In Figure 1, you can see Japan's top spot in losses due to tropical cyclones. The main cultural food supply in Japan is rice and fish, affecting local businesses as rice fields flood and sterilize, and marine life faces ocean acidity. However, increased warmth actually benefits the growing season for some crops, like beans and peppers, providing an alternate source of income. Furthermore, as climate awareness increases and more solar panels are bought, the price for them drops, making it the fastest growing renewable energy with an annual 13% compound growth rate.
The future possibilities. An aim to reduce GHG emissions, Japan plans to be carbon neutral by 2050 under COP21, the Paris Agreement. Japan will decrease GHG emissions by 26% by 2030 and plans to lower, but not fully eradicate, its dependency on coal. Japan has taken a substantial step to invest in less traditional technologies like wind and solar power plants, Figure 1 showing future plans for renewable energy.
Now, although Japan has taken some action to improve their carbon emissions, they're planning to install over 20 new coal plants, emitting an additional 75 million tons of CO2 annually to an existing 456 million. This alone is larger than total emissions in countries like Sweden or Norway. Whilst Japan plans for all vehicles sold to be electric or hybrid by 2050, according to Climate Action Tracker, these goals are still merely goals. As far as mitigation strategies go, Japan has some creative ones. Introducing hydrogen energy as fuel for a variety of vehicles will considerably decrease their annual carbon emissions. Emitting only water when used, hydrogen energy will aid this effort.
The government of Japan will push for the use of new low-carbon technologies, which facilitates diffusion in fuels, for example. It can also reduce greenhouse gas emissions as it measures, reports, and verifies GHG levels to the government so they can meet their goal.
There's also technology being made for ethanol production sourced from agricultural waste, mitigating CO2 levels as normal ethanol production releases lots of CO2. According to ESSI, 19 to 48% of CO2 emissions can be deducted.
And as for adaptation, in order to avoid dry crops, farmers in the Nanyo region have started growing subtropical crops and fruits that can withstand sudden rises in temperatures, like the Tarraco orange and variants of avocados.
Now, when water floods, 5 deep shafts which can hold 65 million gallons of water each collect and pump this water into the Ado River, protecting Tokyo and reducing flood damages to a tenth of what it was before.
And lastly, to prevent illnesses and injuries, field labor performed in severe conditions like strong sunlight and steep slopes will get upgraded equipment and new robotic technologies to avoid deaths. In conclusion, in the future, flood shafts and hydrogen energy are examples forming a more resilient Japan. Sustainable living is possible in the near future, but right now not close enough for Japan to depend on, as they still need to eliminate root sources like large amounts of coal plants, which they just keep building.
The extent of rising sea levels, illnesses, and destruction of agricultural, natural, and societal landsides are a rising concern on the island. But their youthful characteristic of determination, they're focusing on strategies to minimize and hopefully eradicate these, to focus on their innovation instead. Carbon neutrality by 2050 from COP21 and alternative fuels are just some examples which will soon deter the negative impacts, which act as a gray cloud looming over Japan's environment, society, and economy today.
In our bibliography, the Carbon Brief gave us the vital, basic information on carbon emissions in Japan.
The WWF PDF gives a variety of impacts on society and environment, while the ENV PDF gave us well-made graphs on climate changes.
EESI introduced us to the ethanol productions and the positives,
whilst the Climate Action Tracker showed us Japan's journey to meet their COP21 goal.
Thank you.
Bravo, that's really incredible. That's yeah, amazing. If I can just sort of speak, I was just looking at your bibliography there, and so firstly, well done, really